You first notice it on a Tuesday evening in October, a flicker of movement from the house across the street, the one that's been vacant for months. Just a shadow passing by a window, quick enough that you almost convince yourself you imagined it. Almost. The Miller's old Victorian had been on the market since July when they relocated to Arizona for Mrs. Miller's health. The real estate sign disappeared last week, but you hadn't seen any moving trucks or new neighbors introducing themselves. You lower your book and move to your living room window, peering between the curtains. The house stands dark except for a single light on the second floor. As you watch, it goes out. Did someone finally buy the Miller place? You ask Mrs. Henderson the next morning. She's lived on this street for 30 years and knows everything about everyone. Haven't heard a thing, she says, adjusting her gardening gloves. Though I did see a car in the driveway yesterday. Black sedan, tinted windows, very clean. She raises her eyebrows significantly. You nod, though you're not sure what's significant about a clean car. That night, you take your trash out and notice the house is completely dark. No cars in the driveway. You're about to turn away when you catch it again. A brief flash of light from an upstairs window, like someone using a phone screen or a flashlight. You stand motionless beside your garbage bins. The October wind rustles the dead leaves around your feet. No further lights appear. Three days pass. You start taking notes. Day 1, no activity during daylight. Light in upstairs window at 11:42 p.m. Day 2, black sedan arrives at 3:17 a.m., leaves at 4:02 a.m. No lights. Day 3, no activity observed. You feel ridiculous keeping this log, but something doesn't sit right. The house was in foreclosure according to Mrs. Henderson's latest intel. No sale has been recorded. On the 4th night, you wake suddenly at 2:13 a.m. You're not sure what woke you until you hear it again. A distant, muffled sound that might be a scream. Your heart hammers as you slip out of bed and move to the window. The Miller house stands dark and silent across the street. Nothing moves. No lights. You're about to return to bed when you notice the back door is slightly ajar. It wasn't open earlier. You debate calling the police, but what would you say? That you're spying on an empty house and saw an open door? They'd think you were paranoid or nosy or both. Instead, you go back to bed but barely sleep. The following morning, you drive by the house on your way to work. The back door is closed. The house looks exactly as it has for months. Empty, waiting, innocuous. Except for the muddy footprints leading from the backyard to the street. That evening, you arrive home to find a note taped to your front door. No signature. The handwriting is angular, aggressive. You crumple it up, then smooth it out again and place it in your notebook with the observations. Your hands won't stop shaking. You don't sleep that night. Every creak in your house sounds like an intruder. Every shadow becomes a figure waiting to pounce. At 3:08 a.m., the black sedan pulls into the driveway across the street. Two figures exit the vehicle. One carries something large and awkward. They disappear around back. You've had enough. You dial 911. Dispatcher, VO. 911, what's your emergency? Narrator, VO. I think there's a break-in happening at 427 Oakwood Drive. It's been vacant, but there are people going in right now. Dispatcher, VO. Officers are on the way. Do not approach the house yourself. You wait by the window, phone clutched to your chest. 23 minutes later, a patrol car pulls up quietly, no sirens or lights. Two officers approach the house cautiously, flashlights drawn. They're inside for 12 minutes before they emerge, looking relaxed. One of them laughs. The patrol car drives away. No arrests, no one taken from the house. Your phone rings moments later. Officer Ramirez, VO. This is Officer Ramirez. We checked the property you reported. The new owner was there doing some late-night renovations. Everything's legitimate. He has paperwork showing he purchased the property last week. Narrator, VO. But, Officer Ramirez, VO. Ma'am, we verified his ID and documentation. Please don't call about this property again unless you witness something clearly illegal. The line goes dead. The next day, a moving truck arrives. Men in uniforms unload furniture into the house. A small family appears, a man, a woman, and a teenage girl. They smile and wave at neighbors. They look perfectly normal. You feel like a fool. Until that night when you notice the black sedan parked down the street idling. The new family's lights go out at 10 p.m. At midnight, you watch through binoculars as the man, the supposed homeowner, sneaks out his own back door and gets into the sedan. He returns an hour later, alone, carrying nothing. The following morning, you decide to introduce yourself to your new neighbors. The woman who answers the door has tired eyes and a forced smile. You, VO. Hi, I'm from across the street. Just wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood. Laura, VO. That's kind of you. I'm Laura. She doesn't invite you in. You, VO. Have you had a chance to explore the area yet? Laura, VO. Not really. Mark, my husband, has been showing us around. You, VO. I saw him leaving late last night. Does he work night shifts? Her smile falters. Laura, VO. Mark was home all night. You maintain eye contact. You, VO. I couldn't sleep. I saw him leave around midnight in a black sedan. Laura's face changes completely. Fear replaces politeness. Laura, VO. You need to go. Now. She closes the door. That night, you watch the house obsessively. The family moves through the rooms like normal people. Dinner, TV, bedtime routines. At 11:56 p.m., all lights go out. At 12:14 a.m., the back door opens. Not the man this time, the teenage girl. She moves like a sleepwalker, her movements stiff and unnatural. She walks directly toward your house. You duck away from the window, heart pounding. A minute later, there's a knock at your door. You freeze, barely breathing. Another knock. Then, Mark's voice, deep and commanding. I know you're in there, we need to talk. It's not the girl's voice, it's a man's, deep and commanding. You don't answer. Mark's voice again. Fine, have it your way. Silence follows. You creep back to the window. The girl is walking back to her house, same robotic movements. The man, Mark, stands in their driveway, staring directly at your window. Even from this distance, you can see his smile. He raises one hand in a mocking wave. The next day, you call in sick to work. You can't stop thinking about Laura's face, the fear in her eyes, the girl's unnatural movements, Mark's smile. You search online for information about the property sale. According to county records, the house was indeed purchased last week by Mark and Laura Thompson. Next, you search for their names. Nothing unusual comes up until you add previous addresses to your search. 4 results, 4 different states, 4 homes purchased within the last 3 years, each sold within 8 months. In each location, a missing persons report was filed within a 2-mile radius during their residency. Your blood runs cold. You decide to write everything down. All your observations, the online research, your conversations. You email it to yourself with instructions to forward it to the police if you don't check in within 24 hours. That night, you finally call the police again. This time, you're prepared with the missing person's information. You say, I need to speak with Officer Ramirez about 427 Oakwood. The dispatcher responds, Ramirez isn't on duty. This is Officer Collins. You share your findings. The officer sounds skeptical but agrees to look into it. Officer Collins says, stay in your house and lock the doors. I'll send someone to check it out. You hang up feeling slightly relieved. You double-check your locks and settle in to watch the house. At 10:30 p.m., a different patrol car arrives. A single officer approaches the Thompson house. Mark answers the door. They talk for several minutes. Mark invites the officer inside. 20 minutes pass. The officer emerges, shakes Mark's hand, and leaves. Your phone rings. Officer Collins says, This is Officer Collins. We checked out your concerns. The Thompsons have reasonable explanations for their moving history, job transfers. There's nothing connecting them to any missing persons cases. Please stop harassing these people or we'll have to consider charges. You hang up, shaking. Across the street, Mark stands in his doorway watching your house. He raises his hand in that same mocking wave. The next day, Mrs. Henderson stops you as you're getting your mail. Mrs. Henderson, VO. Have you met the new neighbors? Lovely family. The husband is so charming. You, VO. Have you been inside their house? She looks surprised. Mrs. Henderson, VO. Yes, they had me over for coffee yesterday. Why? You, VO. Did you see the daughter? Mrs. Henderson, VO. No, just Mark and Laura. They said their daughter was at school. They've done beautiful renovations already. That basement has been completely transformed. You, VO. Basement? The Miller's house doesn't have a basement. Mrs. Henderson frowns. Mrs. Henderson, VO. Of course it does. Mark showed it to me himself. They've turned it into some kind of hobby room. Lots of tools and equipment. You stare at her, mind racing. You'd been in the Miller's house several times. There was no basement. Mrs. Henderson, VO. Are you feeling all right? Mrs. Henderson asks, concern creasing her face. You force a smile. You, VO. Just tired. Nice talking to you. That night, you pack a bag and book a hotel room. You need distance to think. As you're putting your suitcase in the car, the black sedan turns onto your street. It stops directly in front of your house. You freeze, keys in hand. The driver's window lowers. Mark Thompson smiles at you. Mark, VO. Going somewhere? You don't answer. Mark, VO. That would be a mistake. A big one. You, VO. Are you threatening me? His smile widens. Mark, VO. I'm giving you friendly advice. You should take it. The window rises. The sedan pulls away. You stand immobile for several minutes before taking your suitcase back inside. Your hands shake so badly you can barely lock the door. The following morning, you find another note on your door. You photograph the note and add it to your evidence file. You spend the day researching the Thompsons more thoroughly. You find social media profiles for Laura and the daughter Emma. They look normal, happy even. But the profiles were all created within the last year. No history before that. You find a news article about one of the missing persons from a town where they previously lived. The police suspected a stalker. The victim had reported being watched for weeks before disappearing. You look up the Miller house floor plans in the county records. No basement is indicated. By evening, you've convinced yourself to try once more with the police. You call the station and ask for a different officer. You're transferred to a detective. Detective Morris, VO. Detective Morris. You explain everything. Your observations, the research, Mrs. Henderson's basement comment, the threatening notes. Detective Morris, VO. This sounds concerning. I'd like to see your evidence. Relief floods through you. You, VO. I can email it. Detective Morris, VO. Actually, I'm off duty in 20 minutes. I could stop by your house if that works. You, VO. Yes, thank you. At 6:30 p.m., a car pulls into your driveway. Not a police cruiser, an unmarked sedan. A man in plain clothes approaches your door. You open it before he knocks. Detective Morris? He smiles. That's right. Something feels off. You notice his shoes. Expensive leather. Not typical police footwear. Can I see your badge? His smile doesn't waver as he reaches into his jacket. But instead of a badge, he pulls out a familiar piece of paper. Your third note. You try to slam the door, but he's faster, forcing his way inside. You stumble backward. Mark sends his regards, the man says, still smiling. You run for the back door, but he catches you easily. Something stings your neck. A needle. The room blurs. You wake in darkness, cold concrete beneath you. The air smells of damp earth and chemicals. As your eyes adjust, you make out shapes, workbenches, tools hanging on walls. A drain in the center of the floor, a basement. Panic rises in your throat. Hello? Your voice is a rasp. Silence answers. You stand on shaky legs and feel along the walls. No windows. One door, locked from outside. A light suddenly flickers on overhead. A bare bulb swinging gently, creating shifting shadows. The door opens. Mark Thompson enters, followed by the man who posed as Detective Morris. You should have minded your own business, Mark says conversationally. People will look for me. He laughs. Will they? The police think you're harassing us. Your boss received an email from you this morning saying you need to take extended leave for personal reasons. Very convincing. Cold horror washes over you. What do you want? Want? Nothing. You're simply a problem that needs solving. He gestures to his companion. Like the others. Others? Mark smiles that terrible smile. You were right about everything, you know. The missing persons, the fake basement, all of it. You're very observant. Why are you telling me this? Because no one will believe you. They never do. He steps closer. Observation is a dying art. Most people see nothing. You saw everything. It's almost a shame. They turn to leave. Wait, please. Mark pauses at the door. Try to get some rest. Tomorrow will be eventful. The door closes. Darkness returns. You don't know how much time passes. Hours, maybe. You've explored every inch of the basement, finding nothing useful. No weapons, no way out. Just as despair threatens to overwhelm you, you hear it, scratching from behind one wall. You press your ear against the concrete. More scratching. Then a voice, barely audible. Is someone there? Your heart leaps. Yes. Who are you? Emma. Emma Thompson. The daughter. The girl you saw moving like a sleepwalker. Are you trapped too? Since we moved to Denver? Before that I was Laura. You don't understand. What do you mean you were Laura? They take people, make us pretend to be family. When they're done with one place, they move. New people become the family. Old ones disappear. How many of you are there? 3 now, counting you. The real Emma is gone. I became her. Laura was someone else before. Mark is always Mark. Your mind reels. How are you talking to me? Aren't you upstairs? Not now. They drug us when they don't need us for show. I've been working on this wall for months. There's a gap now. We can help each other. Hope flickers within you. Tell me what to do. The plan is simple but desperate. Emma, whose real name is Sarah, has loosened a pipe in her section of the basement. When Mark or his associate comes for either of you, you'll create a distraction while she works on widening the gap between your cells. You wait, counting seconds, then minutes, then hours. Finally, footsteps overhead. The door opens. Not Mark this time, his associate. He carries a tray with water and bread. Associate, VO. Dinner time. Enjoy it. As he bends to place the tray down, you lunge, aiming for his eyes. He blocks easily, but the tray clatters to the floor. Water splashes his legs. He slaps you hard across the face, sending you sprawling. Associate, VO. Try that again and you'll wish you hadn't. He leaves, locking the door behind him. You crawl to the wall. You, VO. Sarah, did it work? Sarah, VO. Yes, the pipe is loose. I can hear them talking upstairs. They're leaving tonight for something. That's our chance. Hope resurges. You, VO. How long do we have? Sarah, VO. Hours maybe. Keep working on your side. By the time you hear a car pulling out of the driveway overhead, there's a hole the size of a fist between your cells. Sarah passes a broken pipe through to you. Sarah, VO. Use this on the door when they come back. Aim for the throat or eyes. Together, you work to widen the opening. The concrete is old, crumbling in places. After what feels like hours, the hole is large enough for Sarah to squeeze through. She's thin, malnourished. Her eyes have the haunted look of someone who's seen unspeakable things. Sarah, VO. There's one more, she whispers. An older man. They keep him drugged most of the time. You, VO. Can we get to him? She shakes her head. Sarah, VO. No time. I know where Mark keeps the keys. You position yourselves by the door, makeshift weapons ready. When the lock turns, you'll have one chance. Sarah suddenly grabs your arm. Sarah, VO. They're back earlier than I thought. Footsteps overhead. Heavy ones. The basement door at the top of the stairs opens. The first one down is the associate. Sarah strikes without hesitation, driving her pipe into his knee. He howls, stumbling. You follow with a blow to his temple. He drops. Keys, phone. You grab both. Mark, VO. Everything okay down there? The associate doesn't answer. He's unconscious, bleeding. Footsteps on the stairs. Mark appears, expression changing from confusion to rage when he sees you. He charges. Sarah throws herself at him. They tumble down the remaining stairs together. You hear the sickening crack as his head hits concrete. Sarah rolls away, gasping. Mark doesn't move. You, VO. The other prisoner, you remind her. She nods, still catching her breath. Sarah, VO. Third door, hurry. The older man is barely conscious. You and Sarah half carry him up the stairs and out the back door. The night air hits your face like freedom. You, VO. We need to get to my house, you whisper. Call the police. A sound behind you. Mark, bloodied but conscious, staggers through the door. Sarah, Vo. Run! Sarah screams. You sprint across the yard, supporting the older man between you. Your house is just across the street, so close. Behind you, Mark shouts incoherently. You reach your door, fumbling with your keys. Inside, lock the door, call 911. The dispatcher answers. You babble about kidnapping, false basements, the Thompsons. Dispatcher, VO. Officers are on their way, stay on the line. You look out your window. Mark stands in the middle of the street staring at your house. Blood runs down his face, the sound of sirens in the distance. Mark turns and runs. The police find evidence of 3 previous victims in the hidden basement. DNA matches missing persons from other states. The 3rd prisoner is identified as Robert Kane, missing for 7 months. Sarah returns to her family in Minnesota after being missing for over a year. Mark Thompson is never found. Sometimes when you can't sleep, you stand at your window and look out at the empty house across the street. The new for sale sign sways gently in the night breeze, and sometimes, just sometimes, you think you see a light flicker in an upstairs window, or maybe it's just your imagination, almost.